In 2005, the Seagull managed to run on an annual grant of £68,000. With the council facing a dire deficit of several £1 million, they had to choose to make cuts across the board, including the Seagull grant. The potential sale of the building made perfect sense, but not to the community that loved it.
Things began to change in education. The question I asked when I accept this redundancy, what are you going to do with the Seagull Theatre?
Things were starting to go, staff were being laid off. You could see where it was going, but I didn't want to believe it. But in the end, the council needed to sell the building.
Obviously shocked, saddened, confused, bewildered.
For a lot of kids, coming here was the first time they'd ever been to a theatre.
I think I'm safe to say a lot of people would say that this theatre saved them in one way or another.
We seriously thought that was going to be the end of the theatre, that it would be just demolished, and, you know, it's a prime bit of building land, isn't it?
I'd have chained myself to something to stop that, and I'm sure other people would have as well.
My life got a little bit messy around 2006. Had a motorcycle accident, and at that time we were trying to save the Seagull, and got involved with that where I could, and that gave me some hope at the end of the tunnel.
The powers that be wanted it closed, the grants weren't coming forward, and it was in a real sticky situation.
Suffolk County Council was sort of jettisoning responsibility for it.
And the boards went up, and then it was like, nah, we're not having this.
There was a team that was fighting back here.
Through tenacity and a great chunk of stubbornness, you know, there was a group who decided, we're not having this.
The journal started carrying the story, and it was very much about, we have to make enough noise to stop this. The plan was, we're going to remind people why this place is important. So we put posters on the windows that were boarded up to remind people of what the life was there. We had people say things, we had music, we took a piano out there. Gary, rest his soul, was brilliant at finding a press angle, just to keep it present, just to keep embarrassing them.
So the Save the Seagull campaign was, if I was to sum it up in one word, was just insane. All I remember is my dad being on the phone constantly, day in, day out, just talking to absolutely everybody, ringing up radio stations to try and get traction.
We were all outside with placards, and there was so much passion.
You started to feel the wind change.
I was asked to be a patron because obviously at that time I worked for Anglia Television and I had contacts, and somebody who I worked with in pantomime was Des Barrett, who was a national theatre player, and I asked him if he would get involved, and he in turn said he would, and he knew his friend Judy, and I went, oh, your friend Judy, who is Dame Judy. And she said she would be a patron as well.
Seagull has a new patron, RSC. The Seagull has Dame Judi Dench as a patron. And the vital thing about it is it kept feeding the headlines. And so Gary had this extraordinary idea of, we're going to just do loads and loads of gigs and people will all give money. And he talked to all the bands, he knew all the bands, and all the pubs were helping. And it was this incredible kind of groundswell.
There was a huge thing. And I came with my band then called Roxy and the Tin Men, and we did a night. And it wasn't just us, it was other artists too, because John Ward and Mario Price played that night.
So me and Mario Price, we volunteered ourselves to do a fundraiser or two.
So what a fantastic place, you know, a place like the Seagull Theatre did to offer you the opportunity to be able to play in front of people and learn that confidence and realise that actually you can do it.
It was such a roller coaster because the deadline just kept coming and coming and coming, and we still didn't have anything. But I will always remember the day I was there when my dad got the phone call.
He said, we've had someone offer to save it.
Accidental is how I would normally describe it to people.
Yes, and God incidents. I think I just remember getting the journal and seeing that front page, and it rather horrifically coincided with when I had inherited something that I was thinking we should do something proper with, as we didn't have an absolute immediate need. So I thought, oh no, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a need in my face.
And when it got to the 11th hour and 59th minute, I think the issue of the Lowestoft Journal, which said actually if no one has come by whatever the time was, 11 o'clock on Monday morning,
something like that,
then actually
it's over.
So at that point, without a lot more discussion really, we said we could do this, couldn't we?
When does that happen? When? So the meeting's set for Ipswich, and we are all getting ready to go.
Actually, what they'd done, without us knowing, is that they'd changed the venue and time of that final meeting.
It was entirely possible that we would have missed the last meeting by not showing up at Lowestoft Library, because we'd headed over to Ipswich at the arranged time, and by the time we got there, we wouldn't have been able to get back.
And if it hadn't have been for Gary just being so tenacious and ringing the council to confirm where that meeting was going to take place, we would never have known of the change of time and the change of venue. But he did do that, and we were able to go to that meeting and say, no, actually, excuse me, councillors, we have a buyer for the theatre.
Which led to the most extraordinary bit. The Lowestoft version of the Wat Tyler Rebellion turned up at Lowestoft's library. And led by Bob Blizzard, I'd go in as well, but I'm going to be a good boy and not say a thing. Bob goes in, we follow in behind him, and their faces when we opened the door. Someone had rewritten the scene. We walked in, and this is when I started to meet people like Angela and Derek, who'd been very helpful in the, and Colin, and all these amazing volunteers. Of course, then they've got to try and style it out. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you got the change of venue. Gary said, you didn't tell us. So they went straight into it. Well, look, let's save some time. Do you have a firm, concrete offer of the valuation of the building? Yes, says Bob. Mic drop. I wanted to scream. We all wanted to scream, but we kept our cool. I didn't miraculously say a word. I just sat there, and there it was.
And the rest is history.
And I remember us coming down, and I walked in the door, and it was basically a march.
I came to a meeting to see what the interest was in opening the building back up again, and got involved, cleaning the foyer, painting the foyer before we actually started, and then carried on.
I can just remember this very little lady giving orders and telling us all what to do and how to clean properly, and me and my children just cleaning.
We need someone to help with the wardrobe, would you be interested? So I said, yeah, anything to help with theatre. So I went up, and there was just lots of clothes all on the floor everywhere. So slowly sort of sorted them out, and then Angie and Janet came.
Usually if somebody comes and says we need a costume for whatever, then yeah, we can usually accommodate them. There's everything up there from medieval to futuristic.
Found myself here with a paint pot in hand and a brush, repairing, maintenance, and eventually building sets.
Oh, First Flight. That wasn't my idea. That was the brilliant Paul Hobbs's idea. We sat in a meeting with Barry, the editor of the Journal, when it was saved, and Paul said, we should celebrate this. We should show what the Seagull does best. And we ended up doing this incredible collection of events over 2 weeks. Bob Blizzard got Leanne Carroll to come and play jazz. We did 3 plays. We had Darth Vader himself, Dave Prowse, come down.
Being part of the First Flight season, obviously to celebrate that the Seagull had been saved, I felt really privileged, that John had asked me to be part of that.
I'd offered my services as a volunteer, and that was the first steps into me coming here as an adult and sort of being part of the building again.
Ian and Bridget bought this place, didn't take any rent for it, and didn't want the credit. They didn't want people to know. because that wasn't what they did it for. How amazing is that?
And it wasn't about us either.
No.
So that's the most
golly,
important thing.
No,
It wasn't
no.
about
So
us.
it was merely facilitating.
And Ian rang me up, invited me to the Foxborough, and he said, well, we've been talking a lot and we wondered if you'd be interested in taking it on. The little kid in me leapt. He said, I think you're the man. I think you believe in it. I think it wouldn't have been saved without you and the others. So, of course, I said yes within about 2 seconds.
Financially, it couldn't be funded the same way. It had to be, in effect, probably more commercial, or potentially so. But it also had to be much more of a community resource and had to be far more volunteer-based.
This place doesn't exist without them. I call them the Invisibles. You don't see them. They don't make much noise, but by God, you miss them if they're not there.
I found that John had become the manager of the Seagull.
I retired from full-time work and I heard they needed volunteers, so I came.
So I was involved with the volunteering in the technical side of things. Sitting on a music degree, I had a lot of kind of transferable skills, sound, lighting, recording, that kind of thing. So it was really easy just to go from A to B.
If we could have been here 24/7, we would have been here 24/7. Yeah, it was great. It was good fun.
It's the most extraordinary gift, what the volunteers give this place.
I then helped with getting front of house staff, those to do rotas, and then try and hassle everybody to answer me. Not an easy task.
I don't know anywhere else that perhaps someone that's shy or lonely can actually walk into a place and feel the atmosphere and the friendliness.
Yeah, the compassion, the love of this place, you can't forget it. It sticks with everything you do.
I wasn't involved as much at all. I was when John was there. It was when it was getting started. So I was the licensee officially, and was down at Asda and then at Booker's with Daniel on my back because we were just set up for the things that were happening day by day, and we were delivering locally the A4 sheet of what was going to happen at the theatre.
Our first job in those early days in 2008, 2009, 2010 was to make the Seagull a going concern, which meant that, in financial terms, our income had to be the same as our expenditure.
Malcolm arrived like the cavalry. The first time he took over Treasury, I handed him 2 Asda bags full of change.
John's best bits are his enthusiasm and vision. He can get the best out of people. He has a strong leadership style, and I've learned a lot from John by watching the way he operates with people.
So John, as a manager, couldn't have asked for a nicer, most hard-working, understanding human being.
I took part in the S Factor, which was at the Seagull Theatre. I was naturally so nervous anyway, but in the audience was somebody who had been bullying me at school, and I remember standing outside of the building and saying, I can't do this, I can't go on. And John pretty much giving me a massive talking to and a wake-up call in the best way, but get on that stage, girl. It was that kind of thing, Don't you dare let these people, determine what you're going to do. You can do it. And I won it.
And despite all, for example, John Hales' maddening traits, there's an authenticity in there somewhere that we kind of responded to, and with everybody else. And it's that seeking authenticity, and if it's the real deal, then we'll go with it. Gosh, there's so much fakery around. Actually, the real deal needs to be supported.
What I love about this place is that everybody is themselves. There's no pretense, there's no dramatis personae like there is in much of society. You are exactly who you are because that's what you're accepted as. Every single thing here works really, really well and smoothly, like sort of a gargantuan machine where they're even the most infinitesimal small cog is a really, really important part of that machine.
It was just such a relief to walk into this building, which is always so warm, always has been, warm and welcoming, even when it was more like a school than it is now like a theatre. It's always had that feeling about it, it wraps itself around you, and the people here are always, again, there is an empathy there.
So I suffer from Asperger's syndrome, and dealing with that is a lot of like, you know, social anxiety and stuff like that, but acting has helped me, like, you know, so think up of ways to explain things. It's increased my vocabulary. It's made me like prepare for things a lot better than I would have if I didn't, basically.
And then coming here just gave me purpose, and it gave me the boost I needed, and eventually led to me getting re-employed back into IT.
It was a very happy experience, I would say, volunteering. And you never knew what was going to happen either.
Where do I start? It's just lovely to see such innocence and honesty, and sometimes you can come in maybe not having the best day, and guaranteed one of them knows, and they'll just come and give you a hug, and it's just lovely. My job isn't a job when it comes to Fabba.
If you've never seen a Fabba show, you are missing out on life, basically, because it's not possible to sit and watch a Fabba show and leave without just feeling deep joy in your heart.
I did some bits with Fabba beforehand when John was the manager, sort of just helping them with their shows.
Oh no, it's wonderful. Headed by a lovely lady named Carolyn Baker.
I think that the reaction from their carers and their friends and family, it's incredibly emotional. I remember when I went to see Fabba's Romeo and Juliet, I cried from pure happiness, because it was so lovely to watch and it's so inclusive. I remember at the end they did a song, and a couple of them signed the song, and that was just incredible. It was so enlightening to watch.
They meant the earth because they were everything that this place should do. So the first season I created something we all ended up very proud of, the Seagull Rep. And the Seagull Rep was a means for us to do shows and tour them, and we can make some money.
Our experience really working closely at the Seagull was with John Hales and the getting Abby Titmus, who'd been a page 3 model, to be in Macbeth.
It was a much bigger thing to be involved in at the Seagull. Everybody was involved.
John Hales was managing everything, really, as far as I recall, and then directed Rat in the Skull.
And then we did Fawlty Towers with the extraordinary Nick Murray-Brown, Agnes.
We wanted to work with John because he's very charismatic and brought the best out of people, and you just wanted to be part of that phenomenal team. And we did 3 episodes of the series back to back.
And I think it was just the time and place. I mean, people's energy just came together.
We felt incredibly lucky, and all the audiences loved it so much, so it was such a great experience. We're taking this on tour, it's going down incredibly well, and we're working really, 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 really hard. I just think it brought out everyone's desire to create something really special.
That took us all over the county to different theatres and even a church for Vicar of Dibley.
Oh my God, Vicar of Dibley. It was so much fun. It was a joy to be part of it. And the bunnies, the bunny costume, and being so, you know, and the theatre gets so hot and you're in this furry costume and you're all hopping about like bunnies, but it was amazing.
We had nice rabbit costumes made especially for us, with ears and everything, full rabbit.
You make friends and you make stories and you make memories, and a lot of people we don't get a chance to play in our lives. And I think that leads to feeling quite depressed sometimes. I just think it's really, really important for people to have that opportunity.
One of the things I started was to have every other month an evening here an informal evening for poets and songwriters to just try out their stuff, and we called it New Words, Fresh Voices, and actually it's been running ever since.
So we're East Coast War Games Club. We're a miniature war games club. Games such as Warhammer 40k and Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and we also do lots of historical games as well. I spoke to the late Gary Hilton to begin with, and he put me in touch with John, who said, yes, that sounds fine, we can come up here.
Looking back, I was the right manager at the right time. I took it as far as I could, really, insofar as my skill set. The thing I've realised doing this documentary is the Seagull has a beautiful way of spiritually self-sustaining. So after me, I found the best person that I thought there was for the job, which was Paul Amer.
Next time, we'll hear about the new manager, Paul Amer, and his discovery of a special talent among the volunteers.